Talk Ava. Learn English with confidence.
I had a strange experience this morning at a coffee shop because I suddenly realized real English conversations sound completely different from the English most learners study.
What happened exactly?
Two people walked in looking exhausted, and one of them grabbed his coffee and said, "I'm dead today." The other guy laughed and replied, "Same, I barely slept last night."
That sounds like a completely normal, everyday conversation, honestly.
That's what confused me. I understood every word easily, but the conversation still felt different from textbook English somehow.
Because real conversations are usually much more relaxed and emotional than lesson English. And if you enjoy learning through natural conversations like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
See, that already sounded natural. Meanwhile, my brain immediately translated their conversation into something much more formal, like, "I am extremely tired because I did not sleep sufficiently."
That sounds like a medical report instead of a tired person buying coffee before work.
Exactly. That's what shocked me this morning. Nobody around me was speaking in these perfect, polished sentences learners usually imagine.
Because native speakers are usually reacting emotionally first, instead of trying to sound perfect all the time.
I think learners secretly believe fluent English should always sound clean, controlled, and grammatically impressive.
Meanwhile, real conversations are usually unfinished, messy, emotional, and full of personality.
That became even more obvious when somebody looked outside at the rain and said, "This weather is attacking people personally," and
Everybody instantly understood the feeling emotionally, even though the sentence itself was exaggerated.
meanwhile, I probably would have said something painfully formal, like, "The weather conditions are unpleasant today."
Which sounds grammatically fine, but socially distant.
That's becoming a painful realization for me lately, because I think I often sound emotionally far away in English without meaning to.
That happens to a lot of learners because they focus so much on correctness that they accidentally remove natural conversational energy.
I think that's why native speakers sound more relaxed. They don't seem scared of sounding imperfect during small, everyday conversations.
Because everyday talk is not really about performance. Most people are just reacting naturally in the moment.
I also noticed people rarely used complete, polished sentences. One person picked up his coffee, looked exhausted, and just said, "This thing saved my life."
And nobody stopped to think about grammar because emotionally the meaning felt obvious immediately.
Meanwhile, I probably would have said, "This beverage improved my energy levels significantly."
That sounds like coffee marketing from the future.
This conversation is making me realize I learned English in a very controlled environment. Real conversations feel much looser than that.
Because real English sounds human before it sounds perfect.
That line honestly explains everything I noticed this morning.
And once learners notice that difference, they usually start hearing English conversations very differently afterward.
I think another thing that surprised me was how emotionally expressive simple English sounded. Nobody was trying to use difficult vocabulary constantly.
Because natural conversations usually depend more on reactions and rhythm than advanced wording.
Even tiredness sounded different from textbook English. Instead of saying, "I am tired," people said things like, "My brain stopped working 2 hours ago."
That kind of language feels more alive because people are sharing feelings instead of delivering perfectly organized information.
I think learners often expect fluent English to sound formal and structured all the time.
Meanwhile, native speakers usually sound more emotionally relaxed during casual conversations.
Okay, now I genuinely want to understand how real people actually build conversations naturally, because right now I still feel like I speak in subtitles sometimes.
That description is funny, but honestly very accurate for many learners.
I'm serious. Sometimes my English feels translated instead of socially natural.
That's because you still expect conversations to sound complete and polished constantly. Real people usually do not talk that way in everyday situations.
Then how do people actually talk naturally?
Mostly through reactions, honestly. Think about everyday situations like ordering food, greeting coworkers, or texting friends. Native speakers usually sound emotionally responsive instead of perfectly structured.
Can you give an example?
Imagine ordering coffee. Instead of carefully saying, I would like to order a latte and a sandwich, somebody might say, can I get a latte? And honestly, maybe that sandwich too, because I'm starving.
That already sounds much more relaxed and human.
Because there's personality inside the sentence. Real conversations usually sound flexible and spontaneous.
I think learners are constantly trying to sound complete, while native speakers are just trying to sound natural.
That's a huge part of it. Look at coworkers in the morning. People rarely walk into offices sounding polished. Somebody usually enters looking exhausted and says something like, I'm surviving somehow.
And weirdly, that sounds warmer than a perfect formal greeting.
Because reactions matter more than perfect wording during casual conversations.
I think I'm finally understanding why everyday English feels difficult sometimes. It moves emotionally much faster than textbook English.
That's actually a very smart observation, because casual conversations depend heavily on emotional rhythm. People react naturally before they organize ideal grammar in their heads.
Even texting feels completely different now that I think about it. Learners often text in full, careful sentences.
Meanwhile, native speakers text things like, no way, that's insane, I'm exhausted, or wait, what happened?
Very little structure, lots of emotional reaction.
Exactly. Native speakers talk in feelings first, grammar second.
That honestly explains real conversations better than most English lessons I've seen online.
Because everyday talk is not about sounding impressive constantly. It's about reacting naturally and keeping the conversation alive.
I think the biggest problem for learners is that we accidentally sound too formal during completely normal situations.
That happens constantly because most learners spend years studying structured English before hearing enough real casual conversation.
I noticed this recently when somebody texted me, "You still awake?" And I replied, "Yes, I am currently awake."
That sounds like a hospital patient answering a nurse.
See, this is what I mean. In my head, the sentence sounded responsible and correct.
The grammar is correct. The social feeling is the strange part.
I think learners secretly believe more correct automatically means more natural.
Meanwhile, casual English usually sounds shorter, softer, and emotionally lighter.
What would sound natural there?
Something simple like, yeah, unfortunately, my sleep schedule is destroyed. That sounds much more relaxed and human.
I noticed something interesting there. The second version has personality inside it.
Exactly. Casual English creates comfort because people feel like they're talking to a real person instead of a carefully edited sentence.
I think I also sound too official when people invite me somewhere casually.
That does not surprise me, honestly.
A friend once asked, "Want to come eat with us?" And I replied, "I appreciate the invitation, but I have prior responsibilities."
That sounds like you rejected a business conference.
The scary part is that I genuinely thought I sounded polite.
You sounded polite, just emotionally very far away.
That sentence hurts slightly because it feels true.
This is why casual English matters so much socially. People usually connect faster to warmth than perfect structure.
I think learners are afraid casual English will sound bad or incorrect.
Because many people learn English through exams, where relaxed conversational language rarely appears naturally.
Meanwhile, native speakers sound relaxed almost all the time during everyday interactions.
Because normal conversations are not performances. Most people are just reacting naturally without overthinking every sentence.
I also notice native speakers exaggerate constantly.
All the time.
Someone at work this morning said their, quote, life is falling apart.
And nobody thought that statement is logically inaccurate.
Exactly. Everybody understood emotionally what he meant immediately.
Because casual English moves through feelings more than perfect literal meaning sometimes.
I think that's difficult for learners because we're trained to focus heavily on technical correctness.
Meanwhile, real conversations are full of exaggeration, emotional reactions, unfinished thoughts, and random side comments.
I honestly think learners imagine fluent speakers talking like news presenters.
When actually, fluent speakers often sound playful, emotional, lazy, dramatic, or random during casual conversations.
Lazy is interesting because native speakers often shorten things naturally.
Definitely. Someone says, "You want to grab coffee later?" instead of carefully saying, "Would you like to get coffee later this afternoon?"
And somehow the shorter version sounds friendlier too.
Because relaxed language usually feels socially closer.
I think I spent years trying to sound impressive instead of approachable.
That's extremely common, honestly. Okay, another thing I noticed recently is how quickly native speakers react emotionally during conversations.
That's one of the biggest parts of natural English.
Like somebody tells a story, and immediately people respond with things like, "No way, that's insane," or "You're joking."
Exactly, because reactions keep conversations alive emotionally.
Meanwhile, learners often pause too long trying to build perfect sentences.
And that pause sometimes removes conversational energy without people realizing it.
I think I still speak like I'm mentally writing subtitles before talking.
That's honestly a perfect description of translated English.
This whole topic is making me realize natural English is much more emotional than academic.
Definitely. Good conversations feel shared, not performed.
That line explains why some fluent people feel so easy to talk to even when their grammar isn't perfect.
Because they react naturally, listen naturally, and continue conversational energy naturally.
I think I finally understand why textbook English sometimes feels strange in real life. It often sounds too complete emotionally.
That's a very smart observation. Casual conversations usually leave space for reactions, interruptions, humor, and emotional movement.
Okay, now I'm noticing another problem I have. I respond too literally during jokes.
That is a dangerous habit socially.
A coworker looked exhausted last week and joked, "I need 6 coffees to survive today." I responded, "That amount of caffeine would probably be unhealthy."
You destroyed the joke completely.
I know. The moment became painfully silent afterward.
Because you answered the logic instead of the emotion.
That sentence just explained so many awkward moments from my life.
Native speakers usually react to the feeling first. Somebody jokes dramatically and people respond with matching energy.
So a natural response there would be something like, "Honestly, same. I stopped functioning an hour ago."
Exactly. Now the conversation keeps moving emotionally.
I think learners sometimes treat conversations like information analysis instead of social interaction.
And that changes the entire atmosphere.
Even compliments feel different now that I think about it. Someone once told me, "Your jacket looks really good," and I replied, "Thank you for noticing."
That sounds strangely formal for a casual compliment.
What would feel more natural?
Something like, "Thanks, I almost didn't buy it actually." That gives the conversation somewhere to continue naturally.
I'm noticing a pattern now. Native speakers constantly leave conversational doors open.
Exactly. They add reactions, stories, opinions, humor, curiosity. That's what keeps everyday talk flowing naturally.
Meanwhile, learners often accidentally close conversations immediately after answering.
Because they think the goal is completing the sentence correctly instead of continuing the interaction comfortably.
I honestly feel like I'm discovering a completely different side of English now.
Because you're finally noticing the social side of conversations instead of only the grammatical side.
And weirdly, this version of English feels much more alive.
Because natural English moves emotionally. People react, exaggerate, complain, laugh, tease each other, and share energy constantly during everyday talk.
I think that's why fluent conversations feel fast sometimes. Native speakers are reacting emotionally in real time instead of building perfect responses slowly.
Exactly. And once learners stop chasing perfect sentences constantly, conversations usually start feeling much easier and much more natural.
I think the biggest hidden problem for learners is translation brain. Even when we understand English, we still mentally build sentences through our native language first.
That slows conversations down a lot because real, everyday talk moves too quickly for careful translation.
I noticed that yesterday while texting somebody. They sent me, "You coming tonight?" And I stared at my phone for almost 2 minutes trying to build the best answer.
Meanwhile, native speakers usually reply in 5 seconds with something simple like, "Yeah, probably," or "I'll let you know."
Exactly. I finally replied with, "At the present moment, I am uncertain regarding my attendance."
That sounds like an email sent by a stressed office manager.
See, this is the problem. Translation brain makes everything sound heavier than normal conversation.
Because you're trying to build a perfect sentence instead of reacting naturally.
I think learners are secretly scared simple English will sound childish.
When actually, simple, casual English often sounds the most natural socially.
That's still difficult for me mentally because I spent years believing advanced English meant advanced vocabulary constantly.
Meanwhile, native speakers often use extremely simple language during everyday conversations.
I noticed that in grocery stores recently. Nobody says, "Excuse me, could you kindly relocate your shopping cart?" People just say, "Sorry, can I squeeze through?"
Exactly, because casual English focuses on flow and comfort more than perfect wording.
I think that's another reason fluent speakers sound faster. They don't waste energy trying to construct ideal sentences every time.
Because they're communicating emotionally and socially, not writing essays mentally.
Honestly, I think learners imagine fluent speakers constantly thinking about grammar rules while talking.
Most fluent speakers are barely thinking about grammar consciously during casual conversations. They're reacting to people, situations, emotions, and energy instead.
That honestly sounds much more relaxing.
It is. Translation brain creates pressure because every sentence feels like a test question.
That explains why conversations sometimes feel mentally exhausting for learners, even when the topic is simple.
Exactly. Your brain is trying to translate, organize grammar, avoid mistakes, and sound impressive at the same time.
Meanwhile, native speakers are just saying things like, "I'm starving," or "This day feels illegal."
And somehow, those simple emotional reactions sound more natural than carefully built textbook sentences.
I think another problem is that learners often delay reactions because they're searching for better English.
Which accidentally kills conversational rhythm sometimes.
Like somebody tells a funny story, and by the time I mentally prepare my response, the conversation is already moved somewhere else.
Because real conversations reward fast emotional reactions more than polished wording.
That honestly changes how I see fluency completely. Fluent speakers don't build perfect sentences, they build connection fast. Exactly. Everyday conversations usually depend on emotional timing more than technical perfection.
I think I finally understand why some people with smaller vocabularies still sound incredibly natural.
Because they react comfortably and confidently in real time instead of mentally translating every thought.
This conversation is honestly making English feel less academic and much more social.
Because that's what everyday talk really is. It's social energy moving naturally between people.
Okay, now I want to see how this works in real, everyday situations, because I think that's where learners struggle most.
Perfect. Let's go through some normal everyday moments.
All right, give me a situation.
You're at a grocery store, and somebody accidentally bumps their cart into yours.
I would probably say, "It is completely acceptable. No problem has occurred."
That sounds like customer service training from another planet.
I know. Why do I become formal automatically under pressure?
Because your brain still thinks safe English equals good English.
What would sound natural there?
Something simple like, "You're good," or "No worries." Short, relaxed, emotionally easy.
I notice native speakers often sound emotionally lighter during small interactions.
Because everyday talk survives through comfort. Nobody wants casual moments to feel heavy or official.
Okay, next situation.
You walk into the office kitchen and somebody says, "You look tired."
I did not achieve sufficient sleep duration.
That sounds like a scientific sleep experiment.
I'm starting to realize my English becomes less human the more careful I try to sound.
Exactly. A natural reply could just be, "I'm surviving somehow," or, "Yeah, today's destroying me already."
Those answers sound more emotional and more playful.
Because natural conversations usually contain personality, exaggeration, and reaction together.
I think learners are too afraid of sounding dramatic sometimes.
Meanwhile, native speakers exaggerate constantly in casual English.
That's true, honestly. Somebody says, I waited 1,000 years for this bus, and nobody stops to calculate the actual time.
Because emotionally, people understand exaggeration instantly.
Okay, next situation.
Your neighbor sees you outside and says, "Cold today."
The temperature is significantly lower than average.
That sounds like a weather report reading itself out loud.
At this point, I'm attacking myself mentally before you even react.
Good. Self-awareness is improving.
What sounds natural there?
Seriously, I regret leaving the house already. That sounds conversational because it adds reaction and personality.
I think that's the biggest pattern I'm noticing now. Native speakers rarely stop at information only.
Exactly. They add emotion, reaction, humor, frustration, curiosity, or exaggeration naturally.
And that's what makes conversations feel alive.
Yes, everyday talk grows through shared energy. One person reacts, the other reacts back, and the interaction keeps moving naturally.
I honestly feel like I spent years learning sentence construction without learning conversational rhythm.
That's a very common learner experience, actually.
And weirdly, the more relaxed these examples sound, the more realistic they feel emotionally.
Because real conversations are usually much simpler and much more human than learners expect.
I think I'm finally starting to hear English socially instead of academically.
And once that shift happens, everyday conversations usually become much less stressful and much more enjoyable.
I think the biggest realization from this whole conversation is that I learned English academically before I learned it socially.
That honestly describes a huge number of learners, because most people study grammar, vocabulary, and structure for years before they spend enough time around real casual conversations.
And now I'm realizing those are almost two different experiences completely.
They really are. Academic English teaches you how to build correct sentences. Everyday talk teaches you how to make interactions feel comfortable and alive.
I think that's why some people sound fluent immediately, even with simple vocabulary. They understand conversational rhythm naturally.
Exactly. Relaxed reactions, emotional timing, curiosity, openness, and warmth matter much more than learners expect.
Earlier, I thought fluency meant sounding advanced. Now I think fluency might actually mean sounding comfortable.
That's a much more realistic understanding of natural English, honestly.
And weirdly, the more natural English becomes, the less perfect it sounds sometimes.
Because people are not reading from scripts during real conversations. They're reacting emotionally in real time.
I think learners secretly imagine native speakers constantly speaking in complete, polished sentences.
Meanwhile, native speakers interrupt themselves, exaggerate, complain dramatically, forget words, change direction mid-sentence, and react emotionally all the time.
And somehow that messy style sounds more human.
Because human conversations are emotional before they're technical.
That line explains so much, honestly.
Think about the conversations people actually remember. Nobody says, "Wow, that person used excellent grammar structures today." People remember energy instead.
That's true. We remember funny people, warm people, relaxed people, expressive people.
Exactly. People remember conversations that feel easy.
I think I finally understand why my English sometimes sounded distant without me realizing it. I was too focused on avoiding mistakes.
And fear usually creates controlled language.
Meanwhile, natural conversations seem much more emotionally open.
Because fluent speakers are not trying to sound perfect constantly. They're focused on connection, reaction, and flow instead.
Honestly, this conversation removed pressure from my brain a little. For years, I felt like every sentence needed to sound impressive.
That pressure makes conversations exhausting for learners because your brain never relaxes fully.
Exactly. Even during simple, small talk, my brain was secretly working like a translator and grammar checker at the same time.
While native speakers are usually just reacting naturally without overthinking every word.
I think that's why everyday conversations feel fast sometimes. Native speakers respond emotionally immediately instead of constructing perfect answers slowly.
Yes, and emotional reactions keep conversational energy moving naturally.
I also noticed something interesting today. The simpler the sentence becomes emotionally, the more natural it often sounds socially.
That's very true. Casual English usually depends more on rhythm and feeling than complicated wording.
So fluency is not only knowing English, it's feeling relaxed while using it around people.
Exactly. Fluency is feeling comfortable around people, not around grammar.
That line honestly changed how I think about speaking English completely.
Because once learners stop chasing perfect English, conversations often become much easier and much more enjoyable.
I think learners need to hear that more often because so many people feel trapped between grammar rules and fear of mistakes.
And meanwhile, native speakers are casually saying things like, I'm running on caffeine and bad decisions.
Which somehow sounds more natural than half the sentences learners spend 10 minutes building carefully.
Because personality usually matters more than polish during everyday talk.
Okay, I want to test myself one last time because I genuinely feel different after this conversation.
All right, let's hear it.
Imagine I walk into work exhausted and somebody asks, "How are you today?"
Okay.
Earlier, I probably would have said, "I am doing adequately despite insufficient sleep." Now, I'd probably say, "Honestly, my brain is still asleep."
See? That version feels much easier to respond to naturally.
Because it sounds emotionally real instead of professionally edited.
Exactly. There's reaction and personality inside the sentence now.
I think another important difference is that natural English feels lighter emotionally. Earlier, my sentences always sounded too serious somehow.
Because controlled English often sounds emotionally heavy without learners realizing it.
Now I understand why native speakers sound more relaxed even when they use simpler vocabulary.
Because they're focused on interaction, not performance.
I honestly feel like I've been speaking lesson English instead of human English for years.
That's actually a very common stage for learners.
And the strange thing is that relaxed English feels easier mentally too. I don't need to calculate every sentence anymore.
Because now you're reacting naturally instead of translating constantly.
I think that's the biggest shift happening in my head now. Earlier, I was building sentences first and connecting second. Now, I'm starting to understand connection comes first.
Exactly. Natural conversations usually grow through shared reactions, emotional openness, curiosity, humor, and rhythm.
And honestly, that version of English sounds much more enjoyable.
Because real everyday talk is supposed to feel comfortable, not stressful.
I think learners sometimes forget conversations are supposed to feel human.
That's true. People focus so heavily on grammar that they accidentally remove spontaneity and personality completely.
Meanwhile, native speakers sound expressive even in very small moments. Somebody drops coffee and suddenly the entire room hears dramatic emotional reactions.
Because everyday English is full of emotion, exaggeration, humor, and shared reactions constantly.
I honestly think this conversation changed how I listen to English now. Earlier, I listened for vocabulary and grammar. Now, I notice rhythm, reactions, and emotional energy too.
And once learners notice that side of English, conversations usually start feeling much more natural afterward.
I still think I'll hesitate sometimes, though. That habit of building overly careful sentences probably won't disappear immediately.
That's completely normal. Real conversational confidence usually grows slowly through repeated relaxed interactions.
But honestly, I already feel less pressure than before.
Earlier, I thought fluency meant sounding impressive. Now I think it means sounding comfortable enough to connect naturally with people.
That's a much healthier and much more realistic way to approach real English conversations.
And honestly, it also makes English feel more fun.
Because real, everyday talk is not about perfection. It's about people sharing moments naturally together. And if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because we'll keep exploring the kind of English people actually use every day instead of only the version that appears in textbooks.